Rick, I'm really curious. You wrote a book called Laddering, Unlocking the Potential of Consumer Behavior. What is laddering?
So some people have heard of laddering from a financial perspective. So it's a way to improve your investments. This laddering is a different thing. It's the model of asking the question why 5 times to get to the deeper understanding of why somebody does something. And so if you're thinking about it from a marketing perspective, like I might ask you, let's say you bought a stereo for your house. You're like, hey, I see you got a new stereo. Why'd you buy it? Oh, it was on sale. Yeah, but why did you buy it? Oh, well, I didn't have a stereo at my house. And so as we kind of continue to go down that, what I end up will probably eventually finding out is that you bought the stereo because it plays 100 different records. You want to look really cool at the next party. You want to be a DJ. You don't want to have to deal with it. So it's the idea of like when Steve Jobs, he didn't sell the iPod as, hey, it's a thing that holds all this stuff. He's like 1,000 songs in your pocket, right? So like, what is that deeper why of why you're going to purchase it? So many people stop at the first or second question, and it's almost always a question about price, and no one buys because of price. If something is important enough to you, if you see enough value in it, you will find the money to purchase it or the financing. And so we really want to get to a deeper understanding why the person is doing what they're doing.
It's interesting. It reminds me of Zig Ziglar. I used to listen to his stuff a long time ago. And one of the comments he had a friend that always asked questions. And so he asked him one time, he said, so-and-so, why do you ask questions all the time? And the guy said, well, why do you ask? But it's intriguing. I wonder, can you give an example of how that's worked with a client where you walk them through that process, whether they question it or not, and kind of where they started and where they ended up with?
Well, so previous to the marketing company that I have now, I owned a research company for 10 years, and we would have Fortune 500 and Global 2000 companies bring us things that weren't working. So the only reason they would show up at my doorstep is that something wasn't making the sales they expected, or they were getting too many support calls. And they would always tell me why when they brought it to me. They'd be like, oh yeah, this thing's not selling because it's too expensive. Oh, this isn't selling because they don't want to put their credit card in, whatever that was. And so we would use that and be like, okay, cool, I've heard you, that's your hypotheses. And then we would go do the research and find out it had something completely different in mind. So a good example is we were working with a cruise line, and they wanted to redesign their website, and they wanted to redesign it to boomer women. And we're like, okay, so why is that? And they're like, well, because we've noticed that most of the purchases are purchased on credit cards that are owned by boomer women. And so obviously that's our demographic, that's who buys cruises. So if you think about a website sort of focused at boomer women, you might think about time of your life and retirement and running on the beach and all these kind of things, right? And so when we went and did the research, we interviewed 35 boomer women. That's all we talked to, were women in their boomer age. And we found out that taking a cruise had literally nothing to do with being a boomer woman. It had to do with sort of 3 categories. One was people take cruises because they like to party. So they take the same cruise ship every year with their friends, and they don't really even get off the cruise ship. So they're very interested in the discos and entertainment, those types of things. They may cruise because of destination. So they see the cruise ship as a taxi cab that gets them from point A to point B. So you can take your worst cruise ship and put it on your most exotic line. So like the Galapagos, you might send your worst cruise ship there because those people are there for destination, that they literally want to go see something they wouldn't be able to see any other way or in a more convenient way. And then finally, you had the leisure people. So the ones that basically want to be taken care of the entire time while they're there. They want the person to know their drink by the second day. They're going to lay on the deck of the pool, those kind of things, maybe do some shopping. So those were the 3 major categories. There were definitely some secondaries, but when you think about a website that would be based on that or a marketing campaign, each one of those had a very different message that we would use to attract the right person. And none of that had anything to do with the initial assumption that it was to a boomer woman.